Hello, everybody, and welcome to this webinar on people with non-apparent disabilities studying abroad and the Benjamin A. Gilman program. My name is Justin Harford, and I'm a program coordinator with the National Clearinghouse on Disability and Exchange, which is a project designed to increase the participation of people with disabilities in all types of exchange between the US and other countries. And we're supported in our implementation by Mobility International USA, which is my employer. The goal of today's panel is for you to gain a better understanding of what it's like to study abroad as a person with a non-apparent disability, and for you to also learn about the amazing opportunity that is the Benjamin A. Gilman Award, which is funded by the State Department. It's a scholarship to study abroad for people with and without disabilities who are eligible for Pell Grants. And I hope one of our panelists will tell you specifically what the amount is, but it's pretty generous. And there's an application cycle pretty much for every school term, every study abroad term, and you can apply the funding toward whatever program interests you, as a contrast to, say, other opportunities, which are more kind of program or country specific. So we're going to basically start off. We have a group of panelists here, and they're going to be kind of telling you some stories about their experiences studying abroad with the support of the Gilman Award. You're going to learn about their experiences and about the Gilman, and also you're going to have an opportunity to ask questions yourself as well. So I think we'll just go ahead and open this up. And at this point now, just a couple things too for ground rules. Keep in mind that this presentation is interpreted, and it also includes live captions. You can access a link to the captions in the chat box if you want to access them in a separate browser window, or you can also just access them in Zoom. And if you will, please keep your microphone muted when you're not talking. And also, just as a note too, we are recording this webinar, and we're also trying to make sure that in the recording, the interpreter shows up. There will be a recording available after, by the way. So keep an eye out for that and share it widely with your networks as well. The question and answer period officially starts now. If you have any questions, I will tell you to put them in the chat box. And if Nicole sees a question I've been ignoring, then she will let me know. But otherwise, I think I'll probably get them. And if you don't have any questions, then we've got lots. So I will be starting off the presentation and just kind of going through our panel and having them introduce themselves, and we'll be asking questions from MIUSA. So this presentation, by the way, is actually not directly organized by MIUSA. It's actually organized by Nicole Bettè. And so, Nicole, do you have any kind of comments or follow on that, on your effort to organize this presentation?
Yes, thank you so much. I wanted to give a little bit of a brief overview of the Gilman program, and also to introduce the fellow panelists with me today. We have Gilman Alumni Ambassador Ryuu Uchiha, and me too, I'm also a Gilman Alumni Ambassador, Nicole Bettè, and then we have Gilman Scholar, soon to be Gilman Alumni after her follow-on service project, which is this, and her name is Amal Faheem. And I'm going to be talking about living with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, like abroad, and endometriosis, and dealing with chronic pain. And also I have ADHD, which also impacted my study abroad program. Amal is going to talk about deafness and wearing a hearing aid abroad. And Ryuu is going to talk about Autism Spectrum Disorder abroad in Japan. And with that, I'm going to share my screen and tell you a brief overview about the program. One moment. Share. Okay, and then present. The Gilman Scholarship Program is a program that runs through the U.S. Department of State, and it's implemented by the Institute of International Education. The Bureau is Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs. The goal of the program is to really promote diversity through funding undergrads of high financial need. And the goal is to really support students who have been historically underrepresented in study abroad programs, because we believe that a diverse cohort is important. And we believe that studying abroad is a form of diplomacy. And we want students who represent the full diversity of the American people. The scholarship is up to $5,000. It depends on the strength of your application and the cost of your program. And which it varies depending on the length too. You can go for fall, spring, summer, winter, or a full academic year. Not only that, but if you study a critical need language, you can get up to an additional $3,000 in funding plus access to proficiency testing. I'm going to read off right now from the screen the list of critical need languages for people who can't see. Arabic, Azerbaijani, Bahasa Indonesian, Bangla, Mandarin, Hebrew, Hindi, Japanese, Korean, Persian or Farsi, Portuguese, Punjabi, Russian, Swahili, Turkish, and Urdu. But the cool thing, you can also learn any of these languages in sign language, and it will still count toward the Critical Need Language Award. It's important to remember that the Gilman Gilman Scholarship Program is a program. It's not just a scholarship. Once you have completed your study abroad experience and you have done the follow-on service project, which I'm not going to go into, but you have to do a little bit of a project after you have gone abroad just to teach people what you've learned in whatever way you want, you become a Gilman alumni. That gives you access to a wide range of benefits. The most notable one is non-competitive eligibility. It means that when you want to apply to a federal government agency, you're evaluated as you are to see if you yourself meet the criteria, and you don't have to compete with the entire pool of applicants. But just remember that, especially for this audience, if you have an eligible disability, you already qualify because you can apply through Schedule A, which is a specific non-competitive eligibility benefit that you get as a person with a disability. This particular one you have access to for 12 months after the last day of your study abroad program. But there can be extensions because they understand they need to be flexible because of different timings when people go abroad and other life circumstances. So just keep that in mind. You also get access to a broad network of alumni, Gilman alumni, the Alumni Ambassador Program, which Ryuu and I are a part of, seminars and career workshops, networking opportunities, and skill development opportunities. To be eligible for the Gilman Scholarship, you have to be a U.S. citizen or U.S. national, an undergrad, a federal Pell Grant recipient, be part of a credit-bearing program, and go to a country or area with an overall travel advisory level 1, 2, or sometimes even 3. And there's no minimum length requirement. There's a sister scholarship that I want to mention called the Gilman McCain Scholarship. It's pretty much the same. The amount is the same. It's just what changes is the eligibility. You have to be a child or spouse dependent of active duty service member. You have to be a U.S. citizen. You have to be an undergrad. All the other things are the same. The only difference right now is that you have to be a recipient of any federal financial aid, not just you can be a recipient of any federal financial aid, not just the Pell Grant. So it's a little more flexible in that sense. The deadlines for this year that are upcoming, the first one is coming up in March 9th, but don't worry because actually you still have time. Don't feel like this is coming too soon. You still have time to apply. So if you want to go, now is the time to start applying for the March 9 deadline to go study abroad around the May 2023 timeframe to April 2024 timeframe. Then the next application cycle is October 2023. On October 3rd. And just remember, all of this is at midnight of Pacific time. And yeah, so that's pretty exciting. That's so you can go in December 2023 or October 2024. And then I'm going to read off the contact information for the Gilman program and then also for MIUSA, Mobility International USA. But first, I'm going to start with the Gilman one. I'm just going to dictate. And so for the recording, Gilman@iie.org is the email. So that's G as in goat, I, L, M as in mom, A, N as in Nancy, @iie.org as in goat. The number is 800-852-2141, extension 1. And the website is gilmanscholarship.org. That's G as in goat, I-L, M as in mom, A, N as in Nancy, S as in Sam, C-H-O-L-A-R, S as in Sam, H-I-P as in Paul, .O-R-G as in goat. For MIUSA, the Mobility International USA, with a mission of advancing disability rights and leadership globally, the contact information is clearinghouse@miusa.org or C-L-E-A-R-I, N as in Nancy, G as in goat, H-O-U, S as in Sam, E, at M as in mom, I-U, S as in Sam, A.O-R-G as in goat. The phone number is 541-343-1284, and the website is www.m as in mom, I-U, S as in Sam, A.O-R-G as in goat. Cool. We went through that, and now we're ready for the actual panel. I'm excited to answer questions, share stories, and at the end, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Sorry. I'm gonna stop sharing.
Thanks, Nicole. And the Gilman Award is up to $5,000 per program, isn't that right? Whether it's a semester, a year, or shorter?
Correct, and it's up to. So that means that if your program costs less, then you won't get the full amount. But yeah, but there's no minimum length requirement, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think there was a question about that in the chat.
Oh, thank you.
Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and start with the panel. Well, we're already with you, Nicole, so why don't you tell us where did you study abroad, what year, and what subject?
I studied abroad in Sweden. I studied bio-nanotechnology, structural biology, design thinking, and Swedish in Sweden. And this was in the, spring 2014.
Nice. Let's go on to Ryuu. Why don't you answer that question? Where did you study abroad and what subject and what year?
Oh.
I think you might be muted.
Oh,
it was not allowing me to unmute myself, so you might have to ask him to unmute.
Okay,
yeah, you might ask
there we
both
go.
of them to unmute.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, so I studied abroad in 2018, and I went back to Japan to do my study abroad. I studied foreign politics, mainly American politics, and an emphasis on cultural communication.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryuu. What about you, Amal? Where did you study abroad and what year and what subject?
Hi, my name is Amal. I studied in Korea in Korean and Korean cinema during the summer of 2022, so pretty recent.
Nice, yeah, okay, awesome. So let's just stick with Amal here. So Amal, when you began the application process for the program, did you, for your study abroad program and for the Gilman, but what probably would have been more for your program though, did you disclose your disability and request any accommodations?
Yeah, so I actually, during the essay process, actually disclosed my disability and show it as my strength, as my journey, the way to use that as my strength to study abroad and get the scholarship. I did not disclose my accommodations though, so that's a different matter.
Got it. So this is awesome. So, but it was, your disability was, you think it was kind of a benefit though for your application for the Gilman Award?
Yeah, it's definitely a big benefit.
Ryuu, what about you? Did you, how did you feel about the application process and disclosing your disability and requesting accommodations? I think you got to unmute.
Oh, I said I may have to unmute him every time.
Yeah, pretty much.
Can you just stay on?
Whoever's got to get unmuted.
You can just stay unmuted, I guess.
I'm so sorry. I think it was my fault.
No worries. So I did not disclose my disability. To be honest, as far as disclosing it, it's only been something I've recently begun to be open with, because I've usually been the suffer in silent type. And I also overthought it a lot. So I was nervous about, how people would look or how some of my classmates would look. Would it truly be kept confidential? So I just didn't disclose it and did my best to mask it first.
Got it. Okay. What about you, Nicole? Did you disclose your disability?
I think I did because I was actively working on accommodations at my university, but I didn't request accommodations ahead of time. I requested accommodations once I was there. And I want to say just because somebody asked a question ahead of the panel, and I will comment that accommodations laws associated with providing accommodations for people with disabilities vary by country, and they may not even exist, but you may be able to, even if that's the case, you still may be able to negotiate, like have your university work with the host university to try to get those accommodations and see what can be done. So it's not all lost, even if the country doesn't typically do it or that university doesn't typically do it.
I'd imagine Sweden has disability rights laws.
Yeah, and it was great. I got amazing accommodations there. I got more time than I would get at my host university, so it was perfect.
Yeah, and Amal, I know you didn't disclose, or I know you disclosed on the Gilman application. That's great. You mentioned about accommodations. What did you ask for any accommodations to the program itself before you studied abroad?
I did not ask specifically to Gilman Scholarship Program, but
To
I
your
did.
study abroad program?
Yeah, I did ask directly to accommodation, and it was a bit of a struggle because they have very long and arduous type of method in getting accommodation, which is really different because the university over here, I was like, I need accommodation, and they're like, okay, we can get it, like you got it. But over there, it's like I have to talk to so many departments, try and get to the right person to get accommodations. So it was a bit of a struggle, and it's a unique experience. But at the end, I did get the proper accommodation. So I'm glad. It's just more of a self-advocate when you need for accommodation in a whole country.
That makes sense. I mean, would you be willing to share what accommodations you were ultimately able to get in South Korea?
Yeah. So because I have a hearing loss, I usually ask for extended time, a separate testing location, and a requirement to wear a clear mask as well as the FM system.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, that was a really important thing during the pandemic when a lot of people were wearing masks. Well, especially in South Korea, where it's more common too.
Right. It's so common.
So let's see. So, and now we'll talk about safety nets. And safety nets, I mean, they can include formal accommodations. They could maybe include informal supports. So going back to Ryuu, knowing that you wouldn't have access to the same safety nets that you had at home, how did you prepare for your journey abroad?
So I had to do a unique approach called visualization. And when you think about doing something, it's very common to plan it. And the difference between planning and visualization is the concept of a necessary assumption. You plan something and you assume that these things that you need will be provided. When you visualize, you have to go step by step and check if it's there. A very simple example is if you have a hotel after the airport, how are you going to get there? If you assume I'll take a taxi or transportation, you're assuming that at that country that they offer taxis, that they are working at that time, or that you know where they're at. When you visualize, you go step by step, and it's like, okay, well, I need this. Well, in order to get that, I need to know where that's at. And if that is there, are they working? Because here, if I have an issue, I have an abundance of information. Over there, I don't have that. Your phone plan doesn't work. You don't have access to friends and family. So I had to use visualization and walk myself through every little step.
How did you kind of think about that? Did you just kind of take extra time before you left, or did you Yeah, did you have any like suggestions for how people would go about that if somebody needed to be thinking about things visually beforehand or to plan?
The best way to think about it is you're going to need a lot more time, and think about it as if you have someone you truly care about, or like a child or something, and you're terrified that they're going to this place. And you want to know every step of the way. Like, you're going to the airport. How are you getting to the airport? Well, I'm going to take a taxi. And then what are you doing? Well, I'm going to go to the hotel. Okay, well, how are you getting to the hotel? I'm going to take a taxi. Well, how do the taxis work? Is it national? Is it safe? Is it private? You think, and you go through every single step. So it's just about taking the appropriate time and then being critical about every single step. Because once you're there, most of the time, if you study abroad, your flight is not for another month or so to go back. So you have to fix it. And I'm on the spectrum, so sometimes I have a cognitive problem that will flare, and I may not necessarily be able to communicate my need. So I have to really think ahead of time and plan it out and be critical.
Nice. Thanks for that. Amal, you mentioned you were able to get certain accommodations, but it was quite a bit more challenging than how it was at home, quite a bit different. So thinking about this question for you, I mean, how did you negotiate? How did you prepare or negotiate some of the difficulties as you found them?
So I work closely with the accessibility office in my college to help like negotiate the accommodation and getting the right document. But it was a really long process, but I still try to like show proof and try to like stay, what's the word, like try to push it through to make sure that they have accommodation in place for me. So it was successful at the end. And yeah. So like in preparing before going to my host country in South Korea, I actually like downloaded a lot of apps that is relevant to the country. For example, Kakao Talk is really popular in Korea. There is Kakao Taxi. There is like Papago, which is like a translation. It's actually really helpful with the person who can't hear well because it translates what people are saying onto the device to like text, speech to text. So I use social media as my tool because they do really show a lot of like the things you won't expect, like the culture shock, and I was able to use that as a way to understand about the culture and not be shook about it when I was there. So yeah. I use social media online and the useful app. I also use a lot of my Korean friends because Korean population in my city was a lot. So a lot of my Korean friends told me a lot of tips, and I was able to use all of that in preparing for South Korea. Sorry.
So you used social media to learn about what it would be like when you got there, or did you contact people over social media who were in South Korea, or how did that work?
It's more like a general information about South Korea. I did get in contact with the students who are going to study in the study abroad program. So it's nice to have with someone over there waiting for you, so you can connect right away instead of being like on your own. It can be really stressful as a person who is never been out of country. So yeah, that'd be my tip.
Awesome. Going to Nicole, same question for you. Knowing you wouldn't have access to the same safety nets you have at home, how'd you prepare for your journey abroad?
I will say one of my greatest concern was access to medication, because I take Adderall for ADHD and it's a controlled substance, so I couldn't get like a ton. So what I did is I got a month's worth for a 6-month program. So I would only take it for exams or for days where I really, really, really needed to focus, and just drank copious amounts of tea when I was there. But yeah, so I prepared by making sure that I had a full month's worth at least. And not only that, I was worried also about the endometriosis, because I would get a lot of pain, that it was so disabling that it would prevent me from walking or sitting up. So I was worried about what would happen. And I remember that I had a very difficult night thinking about this in preparation for it, and thinking maybe I shouldn't go, because what do I do if it happens that I can't even sit or walk while I'm there? And I was with my dad at the time. I don't know if he's here, but he he said he was gonna attend, but he was in the kitchen cooking, and I was like curled up around a heating pad, an electric heating pad, and just like thinking, I don't know what to do with this pain if I'm there alone without anybody. And at the end, he said, if it happens while you're there, then it happens while you're there. Just take your heating pad and, like take over-the-counter pain medication and handle it the way that you would here. And kind of this trust in myself, like just trust in myself that I can do it. Yeah.
Was it as bad as you expected it would be?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's because you were a good planner.
But when you think about it, when you mentally are more prepared to think, okay, it will probably happen, but it's okay if it does, then it's fine. And also, I wasn't completely alone. I had an amazing roommate who helped me when I was in pain, and it turned out completely fine. I built myself a little resource group.
Yeah, you built yourself a support system
Exactly.
of peers and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it sounds a little bit like that's kind of one of the disability barriers that you had to overcome, and sort of you kind of overcame it through setting up a social network. Are there any other examples of barriers that you had to overcome? What was the process like for bringing the little medications that they allowed you into the country?
It's fine as long as because Sweden allows Adderall to enter the country. There's some countries that you can't, like I wouldn't even bring it to Japan even with a prescription. Like it's completely illegal. You just cannot bring it into the country. But Sweden was fine. It was in its original container. I mean, if you ever have questions about that, about the legality of a medication, especially a controlled substance, definitely look up TSA in the airport security and stuff, and then talk to your doctor, your healthcare provider, so that you can plan ahead. And if you can get more than a month's worth so that you have enough for the program, then better.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, like airlines will not count extra medications or supplies you're taking as a carry-on, so that's a huge benefit. And another resource could be the International Narcotics Control Board. We sometimes use them to try and find information too. So let's go to Ryuu. What are you most proud of from your study abroad experience? And it doesn't have to be disability related at all.
So the biggest thing that I was proud of was healing as a way. So I grew up when I was younger, and I spent some time in Mexico, but that was when I was older. So when you're a kid, you kind of experience life. You're not quite cognitive yet. So when you grow up and nothing going on inside you, no one really knows truly what's going on except for you. You have, diagnoses that are close. You have things that look like it, but you're the only one that really knows what's going on. So when you have everyone around you who is kind of just living life, more so adjusting to you, you can sometimes hold a grudge because it's like, hey, I'm having trouble with this. Why are you not helping me? Hey, you understand that this should be easy, but it's not. Do you not care? And you can kind of hold a grudge on that. Now, when you get older, you can go back and you can rethink and relive things. So I can go back now, and in 2018, I said, you guys didn't understand what was going on. Because in Japan, kind of health in general more so mental health disabilities, is a new trend to be taken serious. It's not something that people have always been mindful of. So I can go back and I can say, yes, you guys should have known. It should have been something that's been taken serious, but I can't fault people who just genuinely did not know. So I'm able to make peace with that because I'm older now. I'm not a kid that just only sees what's going on with me and can't understand other people's perspective. I can understand that, you know what, I need to communicate, advocate for myself. And I can do that now that I'm older. I can see both sides of the fence. That was a very, very, very happy moment, because when some things happen that is traumatizing, when you relive it, you have no idea how it's going to come out. It could come out angry, shouting, or so on. So the fact that I matured enough to be able to do it the right way, I was very proud of that.
Are you saying that like the experience of studying abroad in a country where people generally weren't expected to know about your disability, like that kind of freed you up from this idea of should, and sort of like it freed you up from expecting people to understand, and it kind of got you to think more in terms of what you could do? I'm trying to kind of understand a little bit better.
It's more like when you're young, it's like if you're young and let's say you're hungry, but you don't know how to express that you're hungry, but you understand that you're hungry, and you're trying to tell people that you're hungry, but you don't know how. So then you naturally get upset because no one's giving you food. So when you make the decision to study abroad, your first instinct is, hey, this problem is going to happen again. It happened while I was there. But now that you're older, you're able to say, you know what? I know how to communicate that I'm actually hungry. I know how to say that. So still being cautious that, hey, when I get there, if I see a similar situation, I may not react as calm as, hey, excuse me, I'm hungry. You know, you may just shout. So being able to go back and say, hey, you know what? I understand that you guys did not know, you guys did not ask. That was not a common thing people do. Everyone kind of is in their own world, and Japan is a collective society. That was the part that is salt to the wound, if you will. So that's why it was a good thing, or that's why it was very much healing for me, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Interesting. It kind of an unrelated thing. It kind of reminds me of when I studied abroad in Chile, and I stopped kind of expecting that I would have certain accommodations. So then I started to think a lot more in terms of self-advocacy and how I could kind of be more assertive in getting what I needed. Probably not exactly quite though, like your experience. What about Amal? Why don't you tell us what are you most proud of from studying abroad in South Korea, and disability or non-disability related?
So it's a lot more simpler. I'm just in general really proud of navigating through the public transportation. It's because like back in hometown, it was like we used cars, that's all. There's no walkable area. Like if I need to go somewhere 2 miles, I just take a car. So being in a new country with like a really good public transportation is overwhelming for me because I never went through that or done it in the past. So I remember I came out from the airplane when I landed in Incheon Airport, and I took the subway, and then I had to switch a station, like a subway. I have to like switch the subway in one big station, and I remember I was like telling myself to calm down, like okay, you got this. But when I went to the wrong subway, I almost lost it. Like I just feel like I feel overwhelmed. I was about to cry. It was bad. But like the queens around me, they look really concerned about me, but they can't really communicate with me in English. And I don't know Korean at that time. So it was like really overwhelming situation for me. And thankfully, my friend, since I connected with her over social media, she helped me navigate through the subway and getting out of it. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to survive for the next 7 weeks because I don't know how to do the transportation. So at the end, I realized that looking past in my experience, I gotten so much better on navigating the transportation. Like I can easily go on a bus and make sure that I get off the right one. It's not like a school bus. You have to like push a button to say stop. I did not know that. But I think I was really proud of like being able to navigate through public transportation. And it's really cool experience because when I came back home, I was like, I wish they had more over here. I wish I could able to walk around and just enjoy the activeness instead of just relying on my car all the time. So
Did you find like what kinds of like visual alerts did they have, or like did you find it was pretty easy to get around on the metro or the buses without being able to hear as well?
yeah, so interestingly, they have English as well as Korean. So that's a lot easier for me to read. For example, if I'm in the subway or bus, they usually have like Korean and then they have the English word if I need to get off at Sinchon station, they'll spell out Sinchon in English. So that's helpful for me because I use a lot of visual. As a hard of hearing person, I use a lot of visual. That helps me a lot. But for someone who's not able to see, they actually speak it out loud. They're like Sinchon Airport. Sinchon Subway or Sinchon Station, something like that. So you're able to get off. So I feel like it's really, really disability friendly type of transportation.
Remember I was talking to a friend one time who even told me like in Seoul, South Korea, they even have these lifts that on every staircase in the metro. His complaint was they go really slow, but essentially even like a chair user can navigate it,
Cool.
albeit slowly.
I feel like elevators is pretty fast, but escalator can be a bit slow. Yeah.
Elevators
I
are
haven't
even
used a lot
better.
of that.
Elevators are even better. I
mean-
remember in South America and Chile, they used this really, it was really interesting. It was they had these regular staircases that would go down into the metro, and then on the side of it there would be this little platform that a chair user would roll onto, and then this like light would start blaring and everything, and when it was moving, and you'd see it as this bright like siren looking light, like, oh no, get out of the way, but it worked. Yeah. Nicole, what are you most proud of from your study abroad experience?
Well, I'm also proud of public transportation because I also came from an area that.
No, that one's taken. Oh, tell us about it.
No, I will say my own original one, but I will say I will echo Amal and say that it was a big challenge in Sweden to get used to going from an area that's really cars, only maybe a couple buses, to then having to navigate complex subway systems. I relate because I also have autism spectrum disorder and sensory processing disorder, and I get easily overwhelmed. So that was very difficult for me. Along those lines, I'll say what I'm most proud of, which is I'm an extremely picky eater. Not only about taste, but also about textures, like the textures of food. And I also hated cooking. And I have this whole, I still have a difficult relationship with food in that sense. Like I'm very restrictive. Like I'll eat what I like, what I know I like, and then that's it. And I'll stick to it. But I went to another country, and when you go to another country, you have to enjoy the food. And not only that, but I was living in a dorm with people from a bunch of different countries. And so when you're living together in an environment where people are in the kitchen making all sorts of foods from different cultures, you naturally start absorbing things, and people want to share their food with you and teach you how to make it and all these things. And I would say I forced myself to remain open to experimenting and tasting, and that helped a ton. And yes, there's a lot of things I didn't like, and that's okay, but I did expand my palate, and now I'm able to enjoy a lot more things because of that experience.
What's something that you can enjoy now, Nicole?
I had a German dorm mate who made me arugula rocket salad with, I think it was plain Greek yogurt, and it's delicious. I did not anticipate how good that was going to taste, and it's so simple. It's just 2 ingredients. Yeah, absolutely. Also, one more thing I'm proud of. I felt Swedish. That's not what I'm proud of. I felt Swedish, but I was living with a Brazilian, and I left Sweden speaking almost fluent Portuguese because I immersed myself in this group of Brazilian people throughout my stay. That's it.
Nice. Nicole, do you see any questions in the chat box from the audience?
Oh, yes, there was one that came up that, hold on. Yes, I said, what was the environment like when you were studying abroad? Did you feel accepted or welcome? And I can start, I guess I'll start on that one.
Yeah, start.
Yeah, I felt accepted and welcome for sure. I will say with ADHD, it's weird because it's a condition that is not, I guess, globally accepted. It's it's a little stigmatized, and people just think that you have full control, and it does affect behavior. Like, it affects impulsivity and expression and all these things. So I think people can perceive me as very a little scattered, and that definitely, depending on the culture, can have some negative implications. But I will say within my group of people, the people I met, I felt very much welcome and accepted. And yeah, the environment was very open. Sweden is a very liberal, very open culture, very cosmopolitan. I was in Stockholm, so very cosmopolitan, people from all over the world there. Very friendly. It's hard to get into the inner circle, but generally friendly, polite, lively environment.
What did you think, Amal, and what was it like in South Korea?
So my experience is a bit different. So my study abroad programs are international students, so I have more interaction with international students from UK, from Middle East, from America. Bunch of them were America. So I feel like with my disability, I just told them that I'm hard of hearing. I can't hear well. So don't you mind? If you don't mind, can you put your mask down so I can lip read? Because lip reading is my method of understanding what's being spoken. And they're all really friendly. Oh, yeah, sure, no worries. Like, that's American attitude. So I'm like grateful for that one. But I think when it comes to Koreans in general, because it's really homogenous population, they don't have that much exposure to people who are deaf or hard of hearing. So it was really tough trying to explain myself that I can hear you, but I just don't understand what's being spoke. So that was really difficult on my end. But generally, Koreans are really understanding, and they're really polite and nice. They even gave me like a free meal. So that's how nice they are.
Oh, free meal. Nice. What about you, Ryuu? What was it like for you in Japan? Did you find it welcoming, kind of a mix?
So yes, well, mainly yes. So I'm half Japanese, so that's kind of a whole other subject. The country's still catching up with people who are half Japanese, so we don't take on the ethnic look. And that's very big in Japan because it is a homogenous culture country and so forth. So they're still adapting to that. But the good thing about this is, and you have to be mindful, right? Because too much is not a good thing. So if they know you need help, they will stop everything that they're doing and they will help you from start to finish. You know, they'll literally pause their life to help you. You know, there was a point where I was having trouble understanding a word because in Japanese, depending on the accent, it can mean something. Ame and ame can mean rain or candy, depending on the accent. So when I have a hard time understanding something, I will sit there and overthink. And one of the schoolmates who was there was like, hey, I will ride with you to your destination just to make sure, you know, you got it and you understand. Do you need that? Are you good? And we have something called tate mai in the culture. And that means inside and outside circle, right? So you may not tell like a stranger how you honestly feel about something, but you'll probably tell your friend. So because that, they will reverse that culture for you. So if you have a disability and you're saying, no, I'm fine. No, he's just being prideful. I'm going to stay and help him. So you kind of have to balance it because they will notice you. They will help you. You just don't want to draw too much attention because then a lot of people will be trying to help you. And it's like, this feels nice, but then it can be overwhelming.
It's like
So
they
it
end up
was
crossing boundaries, like they're forcefully
right.
helping you. Like, sorry.
So
Mm.
it's both good and bad. It's a little different because I know the Japanese language, so I can speak and talk. Otherwise, it would have been pretty intense because you have a lot of people using the English that they know. Do you need this? Do you need that? Do you not understand the map? Do you know where you're going? Do you have Line? It's an app. And what they'll do is they'll get your app ID and then they'll start like texting you, but translated messages. So it's very good.
Remember in South America, it was like, I found that all I had to do was go stand on a street corner. Of course, my disability is apparent. And then you'd have all these people offering to help. Good times. Well,
Justin, do you
for
want
other
to share? I don't
perspective,
know if it's, do you want to share what your disability is?
oh, I'm blind and I use a cane. So I was advising another person who wanted to study abroad who was blind, and a while back, and the program had a lot of anxiety about how he was going to get around safely in a South American country. And I just remembered telling him, it's like, dude, like, all you're going to do is stand on a street corner and you're going to get helped whether you like it or not. Like, you could, even if you didn't know how to cross any street in all the country, like, you'd probably get around because it's like this collective instinct. So
Yeah, that's Latin Americans for you. Just for background, I'm Puerto Rican.
So Nicole, for other prospective Gilman applicants with disabilities, non-apparent disabilities, what would you want them to know before going abroad and applying for the Gilman?
Sure. I would say be okay with setting boundaries and saying, like, I'm thinking about myself. I had to set boundaries because I was asked all the time to explore things, just wander and do all these activities abroad, and you want to because you're excited to be there and you want to go out and explore and do everything. But sometimes I had to tell my friends, no, I need to rest right now. Like, I really don't have it in me. I'm in pain or whatever. So yeah, so be okay with saying no and setting boundaries. Plan, save energy, and then practice kind self-talk. Like, be kind to yourself and your inner monologue in your mind, because studying abroad is stressful. Even if you're excited to be there, there are a lot of stressors. You're in a different environment, and then compound that with any disability, and it's just even more stressful, more things to think about. So kind of, there's one thing you should do is practice that self-love, kind self-talk. So you don't, like, if you do get frustrated, for example, don't get frustrated about being frustrated. Like, don't compound that on yourself or feel bad about feeling bad or anything like that. And then know what you need and don't be afraid of communicating it. That's my advice.
Nice. What do you think, Amal?
I would say the biggest thing is self-advocacy. So if you're someone with a disability, be prepared to explain it to a person who may not even know how it feels like or what's required. I've been very fortunate in America that if I just say I have a hearing loss, most people will understand what I'm talking about. I was like, oh, okay. Like they will understand that I probably can't hear well, or I need like a clear mouth. So they're really flexible on that. But a country outside of the US may not have that exposure or awareness. So be able to explain like I can hear, but I cannot understand. So can you please wear this, wear the other system, or wear the clear mouth, so I can understand you better and learn much better. And yeah, and then that also leads to like self-confidence. I feel like after studying abroad, I feel more confident about myself, more confident about going and doing things on my own, which I was having a big fear about. But it's like the biggest thing of solo travel. If there's someone you can't find, just go by yourself. I'm trusting you. It's like the best thing you can do for yourself. Go by yourself, go do what you want, enjoy it. And also remember that it's really temporary. Make the most out of it. That'll be my advice.
Nice. Ryuu, what do you think? What would you want prospective Gilman applicants with non-apparent disabilities to know before going abroad?
Well, kind of three things. The first is it's kind of a joke, but be realistically positive or positively realistic. I have a
Or
friend of mine
optimistically pessimistic?
right, I have a friend who says that same thing. He's like, I'm optimistic, pessimistic. I'm like, does that make sense? He goes, no, I'm positive things are going to go wrong. And I'm like, oh, okay.
So he's got
I
a
mean,
positive attitude.
I guess that's the right way to look at a worst case scenario. And he's like, now you're speaking my language. But be realistic, because maybe it's just my luck, but sometimes I'll say, no, I'm not going to think about this because it's not going to happen. And then it happens. And then it's like, I'm going to plan for this because I'm going to do it. And then that doesn't happen. And usually what I have found helps me is visualization. You really want to get familiar with the visualization, because not every program is comprehensive. Not every introduction, tutorial, or YouTube video is comprehensive. There's going to be some connecting details that are extremely important that are going to be important. A common theme is, let's say your friends invite you to a get-together abroad, and you go to park, and surprise, there's a $20 parking fee. Guess who doesn't have any cash and they don't take credit card? So you want to visualize every step, like, okay, I'm going to park my car. Okay, what if parking's not free? Okay, I probably need money. Okay, what's a safe amount to bring? Okay, what if they don't have change? Now you have to find what I call your biosphere of probabilities. I know in general what's likely to happen to me. Other people like me, I have to carry at least $50 in change. Other people can get by with 10, but I'm like, really? It's $25 for this? Yep. And then I park, and my friend next to me is like, dude, it was $10 when I came. Dang, must be nice. So be realistic and get used to visualizing. It is going to be your safeguard. And the last thing is that be open and welcoming to the experience, because you can either self-sabotage or hope that certain things don't happen. Now I'm more of an introvert, so I'll say, yeah, I'm going to the party, and then hope the party doesn't happen. That way I don't have to back out. Like, oh, well, my water's on fire, guys, so I can't go. And they're like, oh, okay, great, you're not listening anyway, and I'm good. So in that same way, if you apply to go abroad, be prepared to go abroad.
Mhm.
No, they may not be a rainstorm, or this may not get canceled. It may happen. And if you're nervous about being away from home, that's a good way to get a trial for how you'll stand. So if it's like, oh, I was really bad at this, great. The safety net is still there when you go home. That'll help you mature. Because I know some people apply with the hopes that they don't get in, but they can at least say, hey, I did try. but inside they're like, I would be terrified to go abroad because I wouldn't have access to blank. So I would say keep those three things in mind. Be realistic, visualize, and embrace the opportunity because it's temporary. You will learn so much about what you need to improve on, but in a safe environment.
I really
are
like the
great tips.
visualization, Ryuu, because I actually do the same thing. I visualize, and it's like, I don't know. I mean, it's just, I don't know if it's a coincidence that we both have autism spectrum disorder and we both visualize, but I do actively visualize, and I also visualize myself succeeding at something that brings me anxiety or stress. And I think for people with disabilities, we have to think of so many more things that just already anybody who's going abroad has to think about. That visualization is super, super helpful. So I just wanted to echo your words because I think it's an amazing skill to have and to develop. And I've seen the rewards of it myself.
Does anyone have any thoughts about how you manage being abroad, being away from family for a month or longer when you study abroad? How do you keep in touch with your family? That
was a question that was asked ahead of the panel. I guess I'll start because I'm talking. I'm sorry for interrupting you, Justin. I think that cooking foods that are close to what you're used to can be helpful. I find that food is one of those things where the smells, the taste can really remind you of home, and they can really help with that homesickness, that emotional aspect, just like kind of comfort food. And make time to connect with your family and friends back home. And then also make a really strong support abroad, like be open to making connections and friendships while you're there, because especially with other people who are studying abroad too, because they're going to feel the same way. Likely they're going to also get homesick, and having that support and being able to say like, oh, me too, man, like I really miss my mom right now. like I think that can be really helpful.
Does anybody else have any thoughts? Those are great suggestions, Nicole.
Thank you.
Along with what Nicole was saying, like being open to making connection, like also try to keep yourself busy. I find that really helpful for me. Like I remember I was staying in dorm all day long and I feel even more depressed as usual. I was like, I want to go back home. But after that, I was like, no, this is really temporary. Like it's going to be extremely temporary. So I try to make like a lot of plans on what to do. There's so much you can do in a host country that you don't even realize that. So keeping yourself busy with people around you helps me get over my homesickness. And I really did wish I brought food back home, because I did not realize how much I missed it until I went. So that's definitely one thing to keep in mind.
I guess I can finish that off with two things. The first is kind of an echo, as they said, understand that it's temporary. Understand that it's temporary. Understand that it is going to highlight you yourself as an adult, because one of the challenges to living with a disability is living with a disability.
Yeah.
You want help when you need it, but you also want to be able to do things yourself, right? People in general don't like to ask for help, right? And it's even hard to ask for help, especially when you need it. So understand that it's temporary. When you go abroad, you're going to start to realize what you're good at and what you're bad at, basically what adulting you still need. And you're going to be doing it to the max difficulty in a new language, a new country, a new system, a new government, new laws, new styles of communication, direct versus indirect, honest and upfront versus kind of a indirect, not exactly
beat around the bush.
Right, but kind of, I'm foreseeing how you react, therefore I'm stating this. So I think that's really important. And the second thing is stay out of your head. The minute you go into your Headsville, population 1, you're naturally lonely because no one is up there but you. And the longer you stay there, the longer you stay out of wherever you're at. And we have a natural self-comfort mechanism we have a natural self-justification mechanism. And no one knows your weaknesses and comforts better than you do. So you'll find a reason why you should stay in, why they should have done this, why you should go back home. You'll figure all of that out. And, you know, just like they tell you in high school or study abroad, the day goes by quick. I mean, I wish that applied to work, but the time over there goes by really quick. So, you know, stay out of your head, do what you can. You know, they said stay busy, embrace the moment, challenge yourself. One thing that I found that was successful is I do this activity at home, great. I'm gonna go see how they do the activity here. I do martial arts here, great. Let's go see how they do martial arts there. Now I'm thinking about something I can bring back when I go back home. I'll teach you what I learned over here. So that's my advice on it.
Excellent. Awesome. Does anybody have any questions before we close out? It's we're a little bit past, but does anybody have any final questions or comments? Okay. Awesome. Well, everybody, thank you for joining us for this webinar. Thanks to Nicole Bettè, without whom this webinar wouldn't even have happened. Great information, great reflections from all of our panelists. We hope that all of the registrants will keep in touch. If you have any questions about studying or volunteering abroad with a disability, email clearinghouse@miusa.org. And if you want to get in touch with any of our panelists, feel free to also email that address, and we can, if that's a possibility, we can definitely figure that out. And finally, also keep an eye out, as we will have a recording in the next few weeks of this webinar. So you can share that widely with your networks. And many thanks, everybody. You have a great rest of your week.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Justin, for moderating. Thank you, Amal and Ryuu, for your stories. And thank you, everyone who attended, for your amazing, very insightful questions. I'm going to stop the recording.
Thanks for